Hello and welcome to Poetry in Style. So today we're going to talk about a writer I've already talked about in one of my previous videos, Charles Bukowski. You may like him or dislike him, you may love his style or hate his style, but you can't deny that Charles Bukowski became very successful as a writer and was known as the most prolific poet or writer of all time, or one of the most prolific writers of all time. And I addressed in the previous video why, in my opinion, Charles Bukowski became so successful. Now, whether you agree or not, you can't deny that a lot of places where you're gonna go to, you're gonna find references to Charles Bukowski. You've got Charles Bukowski Cafe, you've got a Charles Bukowski Barber, you've got a Charles Bukowski Burger in many places. And you will find a lot of videos on YouTube explaining what you can learn from the life of Charles Bukowski. It's hard for me to think that you can learn something from the life of a drunkard, living decadent life, going from woman to woman and drinking his way to the bed and to the grave. But to start the video, let's just grab a coffee together in a very nice cup, because that's the way, we start the day. Very nice. Slightly bitter, but also really sweet and smooth. That's the way I like my coffee, with a proper balance between the elements. And that's what you need to find in life, isn't it? And that's what you need to find in poetry, which is actually a reflection of real life. Amazing. That's how I like to start my day. So, let's find this poem. The poem I found actually is called The Shoelace. We're gonna read the poem and we're gonna analyze why I find this text really interesting. The shoelace. A woman, a tire that's flat, a disease, a desire, fears in front of you, fears that hold so still you can study them like pieces on a chessboard. It's not the large things that send a man to the madhouse. Death is ready for, or murder, incest, robbery, fire, flood. No, it's the continuing series of small tragedies that send a man to the madhouse. Not the death of his love, but the shoelace that snaps with no time left. The dread of life is that swarm of trivialities that can kill quicker than cancer, and which are always here, always there. License plates or taxes, or expired driving license, or hiring or firing, doing it or having it done to you, or roaches or flies, or a broken hook on a screen, or out of gas or too much gas. The sink's stopped up, the landlord's drunk, the president doesn't care, and the governor's crazy. Light switch broken, mattress like a porcupine, $105 for tune-up, carburetor and fuel pump at Sears Roebuck. And the phone's bill's up and the market's down and the toilet chain is broken and the light is burnt out, the whole light, the front light, the back light, the inner light. It's darker than hell and twice as expensive. Then there's always crabs and ingrown toenails and people who insist they're your friend. There's always that and worse. Leaky faucet, Christ and Christmas, blue salami, 9-day rains, 50 cents avocados and purple liverwurst. Or making it as a waitress at Norm's on a split shift. Or as an emptier of bedpans, or as a car wash, or a busboy, or a stealer of old ladies' purses, leaving them screaming on the sidewalks with broken arms at the age of 80. Suddenly, 2 red lights in your rear view mirror and blood in your underwear, toothaches and $979 for a fridge, $300 for a gold tooth, and China and Russia and America and long hair and short hair and no hair and beards and no faces and plenty of zigzag but no pot, except maybe one to piss in and the other one around your gut. With each broken shoelace, out of 100 broken shoelaces, one man, one woman, one thing enters a madhouse. So be careful when you bend over. From Charles Bukowski. The Shoelace. Why did I choose that text? Why did I pick it? Among many texts from Charles Bukowski. I find it a really interesting text. And if there's one thing that we can learn from Charles Bukowski, in my opinion, in this text particularly, is empathy. In this text he mentioned that, the small things will send a man to the madhouse. And I've observed that, not going to the madhouse literally, but losing their shit. Pardon my French. For example, breaking a shoelace, or, not having gas in the car, or all those small things, and they lose it. It's over, But as he says, death is ready for murder, incest, robbery, fire, flood, all those things is ready for. Let's analyze his first line. I agree, actually. You know why? I'm gonna tell you something very simple. The reason why people are ready for those things, the reason why people don't get mad when those things happen, is because they don't have time to lose their shit. When there's a war and somebody is threatening to kill you just in front of you, you don't have time to go inside your head and start questioning your identity. You don't have time, to look at the world and question whether the world around you is real or not, because you know that the bullet in the gun of the person is real, and you know that death that's going to end you is real. Fire, flood, all those things. You have to act. So you don't have time for insanity when it's about those things. But when it comes to the small things like breaking a shoelace, I'm gonna tell you something. It's happened to me that I often lost my shit for small things. I often really, became mad for small things. And I don't think, in my opinion, that anybody gets mad or sent to the madhouse, as he said in the text, because of a broken shoelace, or because, there's too much gas or not enough gas in the car. There's an accumulation of things going on after, an accumulation of losses, an accumulation of failures and disappointments in life. Let's imagine, you're trying to work, but you get fired. And at some point, your wife is really annoying. And at some point, all your friends give up on you. And you go home, and you have this. You've had all those failures, and you've dealt with them. You tried not to cry, you tried not to break down, but you go home, and the last place where you can have solace, the last place when you can have this moment of comfort, is playing a good video game with your online friends. You go home, it's really shit, everything is going bad, but you can play online with your friends. You play your console, and you try to play, and something tells you that there's a notification that there's no internet that day for some reason. What a small problem. What a small problem. You can't lose your shit because there's no internet and because you can't play online. But you don't lose your shit because of that. You lose it. You become mad because of all the small things, all the things accumulated before. And at some point you walk, you break a shoelace. You break a shoelace, man. You know what I think is that in this world, a lot of people lack empathy. And when they see people having problems like that, or really breaking down, they don't try to understand them. So that's the reason why I find this text interesting. The thing we can learn from this text, I think, is empathy. The thing we can learn from Bukowski is empathy. And that's what I wanted to say, to tell you today. And I wanted to know what you think. And in the meantime, wow. Imagine if everything was going wrong, but the only thing you've got left is a nice coffee, and then the coffee is disgusting. How would you feel? Think about that. Thank you. It's not the case.